Hi, so I'm going to be talking about the Baltimore City budget, which I've been a bit obsessed with for about the last month. The argument I'm going to make is that within this document of the budget is an entire blueprint that explains why the city is the way it is. So I'm going to make two kind of core points in the next 5 minutes. The first is about criminalization. And the argument I'm going to make is that within the Baltimore City budget, people and residents are viewed as criminals rather than human beings to be developed. And it's coming. So what do I mean by this? We spend in this city almost $500 million on the police. This is more than health, parks and rec, arts and culture, housing and community development combined. We are criminalizing rather than developing people. There are more employees in the Baltimore City Police Department than in any other department. There are over 3,000 budgeted employees in the Baltimore City Police Department. And if you look down there at human services, I think there's like 100 and something in human services. That's homelessness, Head Start, and reentry. 1.5 times more people work in the police department than in the departments that I say are more towards developing people, not criminalizing, but developing. So health, housing, community development, the library, Head Start, 1.5 times more to criminalize than to develop in all of those departments. And you can see this department by department. Baltimore City spends 4 times more on the police than health, 12 times more on the police than parks and rec, and 18 times more on the police than on job development. Here's a case study. Last week, the mayor was tweeting about Safe Streets, which is the violence prevention program here. So this de-escalates violence rather than criminalizing and sort of addressing violence after it's happened. She's saying Safe Streets is so great, it's been so effective. So I was like, I wonder how much they spend on it. I went and I looked in the budget. Turns out for 2016, the mayor is actually decreasing Safe Streets budget by 18%. That's interesting. I wonder what she's doing to the police budget. She's increasing the police budget by 7%. What does this mean in numbers? What it means in numbers is that for the fiscal year 2016, Safe Streets is getting $200,000 less. The Baltimore City Police Department is getting $31 million more. The entire budget of Safe Streets, which operates in 4 neighborhoods, is about $1 million. And so what that means is that you could take just $1 million from that police increase, and you could double the size of Safe Streets. The second thing I want to talk about is the scarcity narrative. And if you've been in Baltimore for a while, this should be familiar. This is something we hear people talking a lot about. We just don't have enough money. This is how we justify the displacement of families in East Baltimore, bringing in the casino. Here's an example of the scarcity narrative. Because of budget constraints, we couldn't fund rec centers at the level that they needed to be funded. The message that we get is that if only the money was there, we would do it, but the money just isn't there. This is a tweet from last week. Stephanie Rawlings-Blake is saying lately the city faced a $750 million structural budget deficit when she entered office. She had to make difficult decisions and she had to cut rec centers, right? The money just isn't there. We would love to fund it. So what are these numbers? $12 million. That's the annual budget for the rec centers for 2015, for the whole year. $20 million, that is the unbudgeted money that somehow was found to cover the 1-week militarized city response to the protests. So somehow the money is there, suddenly. What is this? This is spending from 1986 on police and rec centers. You can see the police spending has increased about 243%. You can see where Stephanie Rawlings-Blake took office. Rec center spending is plateaued. So we wonder why our rec centers are crumbling. I'm going to try and talk you through this one. The red line shows changes in the city's operating budget. The blue line shows changes in the police budget. So for the most part, they follow one another, but what happens in 2013? 2013, the change in the police budget spikes. There's a 15% increase in the police budget, 1% increase in the overall operating budget, which means Stephanie Rawlings-Blake has become, at least in the data that I have available, has increased the police budget in a single year more than any other mayor. In the same year, when she's talking about shutting down rec centers, when she's talking about austerity measures, in that year you can see that the amount that was raised for the police department was 5 times that for the rec center budget. And you can see that Stephanie Rawlings-Blake, and I'm not out to crucify her, except that this is really what it is. Stephanie Rawlings-Blake spends more on police, 19% on police spends more on police than any other mayor in the past. So what replaces this is a necessity narrative. This is a quote, "Despite major budget shortfalls, we fully funded the police department. It's important because it sustains major reductions in crime." So So there's the scarcity narrative of we just don't have the money, right? And then there's the necessity narrative of even if we don't have the money, we have to spend this on militarizing response to the protests. We have to spend this on fully funding the police department when we're cutting all other social services. So that's what I have for you. Thanks so much.